Now, most schools are set to resume even as Nigeria battles with a second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. But there are concerns about the safety of teachers and students in the light of rising infections as many continue to flout safety protocols. I have in the studio with me a parent and policy analyst, Akin Fatunke. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning, Veronica. Good morning, Nigerians. Thanks for having me.
All right. The federal government has asked schools to reopen this on the 18th, and there has been diverse reactions with regards to that, stemming from the fact that there is a second wave and the virus is seemingly raging as it is. I wonder what your reaction to this development is. Are we ready when you look at what is on the ground? Are schools ready to reopen? As a parent, are you ready to send your child back to school?
Well, there are two ways to it. For most things in Nigeria, whether we are looking at this education, we are looking at some other things, we really never are ready. Yeah, we are good at conceptualizing, identifying, but going further to making sure that we dot the I's, cross the T's, is the graveyard of strategy in Nigeria generally. As a parent, naturally, I am apprehensive of the fact that I see my next door neighbor or my fellow who has a teenager in about 1.5 years ago, and what I see is that teenager being pregnant without necessarily going to school. So I am apprehensive. And of course, naturally, the reaction will be because they're not going to school and, the discipline that follows being in school to bring the best out of the girl child and the male child, because it takes two to do that kind of tango, is not there. So I am worried. At the other end, I am also worried stiff because I know so very well that crossing over 10,000 in what we are recording for COVID-19 second wave is merely a tip of the kind of iceberg that should have happened. In other words, there are so many asymptomatics going on there. There are so many people that are not believing they should. There are people who are not even ready, as we speak, to even believe. And this is not just to the holy-poly, not to the downtrodden. I'm saying up to the elites and people in government, they still don't believe. And I see the rate of death. I have had to experience close people to me who talk about COVID all the time, who try to educate on COVID all the time, who, in fact, the whole of their lives looking at COVID, falling to this same COVID. No, it's not, I'm told. It's really happening. Just lost a pastor in the household of God who used to be a senior of mine, Pastor Yinka Akibami. It is painful when I begin to see things like that. I will say to you, Veronica, is scary. We have a catch-22 situation. We either decide, like Malcolm X said, when he said that education is the passport for the future.
Absolutely.
And those who prepare today are the ones that are going to get the best of tomorrow. We had not prepared yesterday. The today of is staring us in the face, really not ready. So, to your tents, oh Nigeria, oh Nigerians, again, we can do a bit of, I know we're doing a bit of a cut and paste, looking at the Norway and the Finland example, but we are not implementing to the letter. In our own case, we now have the issue of security, kidnapping, all putting it there, putting a lot of pressure on parents to now become first teachers. Yeah, that's how it used to be. First level instructors. There's a difference between an instructor and a teacher. A teacher is a professional person that gets children together and bring the best out of them.
Right.
But parents will now have to, despite the fact that they are paying taxes to government for policies that work, not working, still have to now put a lot of pressure. We need to.
All right. Let me quickly take this one of the stories from the pages of today's papers. That is The Punch, saying it's unsafe to reopen universities now. COVID-19 guidelines absent. ASU has reacted to government saying the reopening of schools. They are saying that no measures have been put in place to ensure their own safety as well as the safety of the students. So they are also questioning the sincerity of the government towards reopening of schools. But before now, you would recall that as of last year, 9 months students were home. There was a strike based on the disagreement between the union and the government. And now government is saying there has been an agreement, and government is saying return to schools, but ASU is responding saying that it is not safe. Now, from all that you have said, how do we balance this? Because there is a report from the UN saying about 24 million may drop out of school as a result of COVID-19, which is also scary. How do we ensure a balance as it is? You talked about we having not prepared for what we are facing today. Where did we miss it? What can we do to ensure that this figures staring us in the face? You recall the number of out-of-school children that we already are recording from the north. A majority of those numbers are in the north. And now this is what is staring us in the face.
Self-inflicted harm, I must say. Even before COVID.
Yes.
I'm happy, Veronica, you mentioned out-of-school children.
Yeah.
It's always been there. Again, back to Malcolm X. We were not preparing, we were not planning, we were not doing forward reaction, because we got selfish and we are all pursuing our different ends. Governments upon governments are forming.
Because there has been budgets we allocated when it comes to education. What were we not doing right? What were we not getting correctly? Where did we miss it? The leadership role, were we leading from the front, or what exactly were we not doing?
We are not doing virtually everything. From the low-hanging fruits, carrying people along, comes back to these vexatious discussions about restructuring. You know, when you say restructuring, restructuring also means that our educational system has to be properly restructured from all levels up to the local governments. Now, basically, the rule says the local governments are supposed to be the first responders when it comes to primary education. Are they doing it? How effective is that going on? Despite the fact, like you rightly said, monies have been going in there, how much has been going in there, how serious has been the kind of budget that we pump in there, and even if it is 1 naira has been going there, how have we been looking at how that is being accounted
utilized
for? That's one. Secondly, my friends in ASU rightly are coming out and making the noise that
it is not safe.
It is not safe today because we didn't plan as we should have planned tomorrow. The model that we are cutting and pasting, and that's absolutely, please don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong in benchmarking and looking at good examples that are done beyond your shores. If you look at Norway and if you look at Finland, the protocols that ASU is talking about has been rolled out for quite a while. What have we done in the interim? You talked about 9-10 months of being out of school. Was ASU, for instance, looking critically and asking the critical questions beyond funding? And I give it to them. Beyond funding, that there are a few low hangers that we should be looking at almost immediately. If we were doing that, it would have been a job and motion study that would have told us that, yes, we need to go digital. We need to be much more serious in making sure that, digital learning. Some schools were doing it, private schools were doing it. How could we go to learn from there? without necessarily spending a farthing or a kobo. If you all just stayed for 9 months, and this is also inclusive, if you all just stayed for 9 months and believing that, yes, manna is going to just come straight from heaven, Father Christmas, federal government will be the be-all and end-all
Could they have done anything without the federal government?
Oh, well, the private sector, some aspects of private sector exist without the federal government, I dare say to you. Yes, it becomes tough. The most successful private businesses sometimes, in spite of government, goes around it and still succeed. The only problem at the end of the day is that government sometimes want to come after them. Look at the whole gamut of the PIB that we are talking about. After the oil companies have paid, their taxes, educational, tax, and what have you, and they are now still being slammed with community taxes. They are being slammed with community taxes because beyond government and beyond the incentives that we see in government, beyond the corruption that pervade government and government parastatals that look at their industry, they've gone right around it. They've had to look for their water. They have to look for their electricity. They have to look for their security, extra security. And after doing that, they make some profit and government still comes after them. My point is, we must stop. We must look back. We must, in all honesty, accept the fact that we have not planned for our tomorrow, which is staring at us in the face today. We must reprioritize. Government must be seen, in spite of the trust deficit, that the time is here and now. Because I have a quotation, and I told friends, said, 9/10% of education is encouragement. Not being encouraged in any way, oh, come on. I think we really need to get back. So back to square zero. Are we ready to reopen schools? I will say it's got to be a balance between seriousness and the relative fear that we may have. Schools in some parts of the country are much more prone, say for instance, if you went out and you open schools and the Boko Harams and the ISIS, ASWAP can just come and sweep people around, you need a different type of protocol and critical thinking to see how that is going to go. Now, in some other parts where we don't have as much, yes, I like the idea that in Lagos State, for instance, I know we had the tree planting program. And we had schools that had big compounds and they had trees in there. Must we cluster these children
in the classroom?
In the classroom? We can do it a bit in the open. As long as all the safety protocols, all the non-pharmaceutical protocols about making sure face masks, hand washing, spacing of these children can go on. Now, because state governments have virtually, in a convulsive manner, taken over from funding perspective, even though I know it's now a bit eased now, what local governments should be doing. Local governments are supposed to be going to each of these schools, look at their peculiar problems. Not just looking at their peculiar problems. Please, we need to begin to listen to the private school owners who in the first wave had their assets not sweated in any way and they were still paying taxes. They were still paying, they are supposed to be maintaining salaries. So there has to be some
relief on the one hand.
I think that kind of relief can come. You are going to ask me from where?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, by doing less corruption, by doing more of forward thinking, by looking at how we have allocated the little resources we have, by people who have been encouraged to give more, and at the end of the day, the governance structure of educational funding in Nigeria needs a total overhaul. It is not going to be federal government still holding on, still part of the, reorganization that we are still talking about, so that private sector can come in. Yeah, cost of tuition might go up a little bit at first, but eventually, like telecoms, will taper and we'll be able to get value for money.
Now, some would say that perhaps this is in the long term, because the 18th is just a few days from now, and there are already complaints. What can be done to perhaps quickly, when you look at the number of persons in certain classrooms, in certain lecture halls, you can see the volume of the crowd that you find in such lecture halls. We recall that after the first phase of the lockdown, when schools were reopening, some schools had 2 sessions. Those that come in the morning, those that return in the afternoon, and all of that. Are these the measures we have to perhaps pick up again? What do you see playing out at the end of the day, if we really are looking at the 18th to reopen schools?
Again, I will be greatly surprised if that 18th of this month, January,
yes,
was fixed arbitrarily. But then I will also say to you, Veronica, I may not really be so surprised. It won't be the first time, it won't be the second time. I don't know I have all the facts. Is it a knee-jerk situation? Was there consultation? Was ASU consulted? Yes, I know letters have been written by private, schools, proprietors, crying foul. Is it a reaction that we've lost so much, please, you have to come to our aid, and then you pick that, and then you fix?
Particular date.
Just particular date. Again, goes back to the inefficiency administration we have in the way we are, we attack problems. Fishbone theory tells you if you want to really resolve a problem after identifying, you ask yourself, who are the stakeholders? Have you carried them along? Okay, in majority, if you have, tick that box. How is it going to be funded? Where is the funding going to come from? Oh, I have the money. Okay, I have to borrow more. We are really over-borrowing for infrastructures that we are laboring, that we don't even know how to repay. Emerging economies have been said that they are going to grow at 5%, and then you look at your books, you are contracting at -6%. What does that tell you? You must now begin to cut quotes according to your cloth. What I see is a situation is that certain class of people, politicians, are not ready to sacrifice. Sacrifice a little bit more to give back to the poor, who, I must say, if you don't tend to them now, if you don't tend to them and things go the way they are going, you saw how the hoodlums came out during NSAS, they are waiting with weapons to eat the rich. So that emotional intelligence must come back to all of us, from Mr. President as the main driver, to the National Assembly, to the state governors, up to the local government, that we are in all of this together, including our religious leaders, including our NGOs. We all must be speaking the same language. Now, if 18th is no more realistic, I do not see what ego will be that have made that pronouncement. I can't change my mind. Which instruction says, yes, I said so, and I'm changing my mind in view of realities. Let us, like Professor Dora Kinyuli, before she died, said, we made a mistake in the way we have gone about it. Let's stop. Let's review. Let's think back. Let's be humble about it. Let's apologize to those we need to apologize to, and let's begin to do the right things. The bottom line is that the way education is being funded in Nigeria today is no more realistic.
Right.
It's too egoistic. It's top-heavy with a lot of corruption up there, including third fund administration. I also understand that even if everything was in place, Veronica, if everything was in place and we are looking towards opening on January 18, look at the vibe that is coming out of the universities. The non-academic staff and the SANU, despite it all, we don't like the way you put 40 billion and how we are going to be sharing it and stuff like that. Simple administration, simple communication. Communication continues to be the real bane of this administration. Communication, making sure people understand, unless if you have something that you have to hide under the cupboard. Let's be clear. We are looking for compassion from ASU. I agree. I also plead with ASU for that kind of compassion. But for that compassion to come to be, they must see good, exemplary leadership. Winston Churchill, he said, and this is what I'm going to be dropping with parents.
Very important.
Fear. Fear is a reaction. And we always have fear. We need to balance things. But courage. When I say courage, when Winston Churchill mentioned courage, is actually the real action that we need to pursue. At our individual level, at our religious level, at our community level, at our household family level, the communal way of how we used to do it, of Tales by Moonlight between 7 and 8, is all part of the things that should come in now.
Right. Very important.
And with that, please let's keep safe. The monitoring is very important. ASU just made a banner headline.
All right.
You know those protocols?
They are key.
Yes, we know the children, you know.
We have to leave the conversation.
We must make sure we trace, we capture them. The people that are going to be looking and controlling them will not be people that will be asking for bribes in any way.
We have to leave it here now.
Thank you very much, Veronica.
Policy analyst and a parent, Akin Fatunke, thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you very much.